Now, I get a lot of questions about what to do after a breakup. Unfortunately, most people who start asking me these questions have already made some of the biggest mistakes that make it almost impossible to repair a relationship and sometimes even damage new relationships with other people. So what I did is create a list of things not to do after a breakup so you won't have to deal with some of the residual damage of the choices that you might make. The number one thing not to do after a breakup is bash the other person. Now, I know when you break up with somebody, you're often really pissed off and you feel like everything was their fault. A lot of times the emotion gets the best of you and you really just want to tell somebody, family, friends, just people in general, Facebook, Twitter, whatever. You want to go out there and tell the world that, hey, this wasn't my fault. This was their fault. Unfortunately, what happens from that is it usually doesn't go well for you because maybe you might want to get back with this person. And when you do, your family, friends, Facebook, Twitter, all of that, they don't forgive the person. Why? Because in your mind and in your heart, you know that there was two sides to the story, but they only heard one. So for them, they feel like you're just being duped back into a relationship with somebody who has done nothing but treat you badly. Now, also, you have to understand that when you tell somebody that you were in a relationship that was really one-sided and you were treated so horribly, you're also telling people that you have bad judgment. When you tell people that you have bad judgment, that means that they question everything that you do in the future and everything you've done in the past. So if you get a new relationship, people are going to look at that person sideways like, is this more of the same? Are you making another bad decision like you always do? Should we trust this person? The reality is when you start bashing the people that you used to be with, it makes it more difficult for them if you try to get back with them and you, but it also makes it more difficult for the next person because people can't trust them because they don't trust you. So a big thing that you want to do is make sure that you don't bash people. You take some time to think about the situation before you start getting out and really talking about it and trying to put your own spin on it. Number 2, you don't want to jump into a new relationship. Now, when you break up with somebody, a lot of times there are wounds there. And a lot of times you want to have somebody around to make you feel better. Somebody to tell you that you were right. Somebody to comfort you, somebody to take you places, somebody to fill in some of the gaps from the relationship that you just lost. That's kind of what you want to do a lot of times when you break up with somebody. But unfortunately, what often happens is when you close the door in that way, you may not be ready for it to close. You may not be done on the other side. So what often happens is you get with this new person. Now you want to flaunt them. Now you want to use them to kind of, get the other person a little bit jealous sometimes, things of that nature. And what often happens is you just help that other person close the door on you. You help them to put a barrier up where they've basically said, okay, this person has moved on. I'm going to move on. Now, don't get me wrong. When you show up with somebody else a week after you broke up with the last person, of course, the other person is going to be jealous. Your ex is going to be upset. They're going to be, oh my God, who is this person? All of that kind of stuff. Initially, of course, there's going to be some jealousy. It's probably going to even cause them to want to chase you a little bit, want to try to get with you again. But what you don't realize a lot of times is that you've already told this person that you've moved on. You've already told them, especially if they feel like you slept with the other person, all that kind of stuff. You've already told them that you've crossed a barrier in their mind, especially for women. What you have to understand is when you sleep with somebody else, you've actually removed one of the greatest fears from the guy that you just broke up with. Most guys' greatest fears is somebody's going to sleep with their girl. If you break up with your guy and you sleep with somebody else or you start dealing with somebody else, it really helps that dude to move on, helps him to let go. It works that way with women sometimes, but just not as much. So when you find somebody, when you decide you want to move on, make sure it's something you really want to do. Also, you have to understand that when you jump right into a new relationship, a lot of times it's a rebound situation and you're not picking the person for the right reasons. You're not really connecting with the person for the right reasons. Everything in your new relationship is really about your old relationship. You spend most of your time talking about your old relationship. You spend a lot of time thinking about your old relationship, and you're really sabotaging whatever chance you have to be with this new person. Also, because of the fact that you don't really have everything fixed up, you don't have everything worked out, even your friends and family don't really take your new relationship as seriously as they would if you took some time, thought about it for a little while, healed for a little while, and presented your best person to this new person. Number 3, don't try to hurt. A lot of times when you break up with somebody, you get emotional. You get upset. You start thinking about everything they did or didn't do for you, everything that happened in the relationship. And a lot of times that causes you to want to hurt them as bad as you're hurting right then. Well, unfortunately, you're going to do hurt to that person, but then you're not going to be mad anymore. There's going to come a time when you're no longer angry, you're no longer upset, you're no longer emotional, and you're going to have to deal with the consequences and the feelings that are the residual feelings from everything that you decided to do at that time. And you're going to have to deal with it with a clear mind. Unfortunately, a lot of times you're not going to like what you did, and you're not going to like what that produced. Of course, you wanted to hurt the person, and you might have been able to do so for a little while. But now that person feels differently towards you. The reality is you can't really get revenge on anybody. Yes, you can try different acts, but you cannot control outcomes. You can do all kinds of things to people, but you can't control the outcome. A lot of times you want to hurt somebody, so you do this, that, and the other, and you might end up helping them in the long run. But what you've really done for that person definitely is made them feel like they haven't lost anything. When you go out there and you start disrespecting the person, you start trying to hurt the person in whatever way you possibly can, what you're doing is you're letting that person know that being with you probably wasn't a good idea in the first place. You're letting them know that you're not who they thought you were, that you're not as good of a person as they thought you were, that you're not really the catch that they thought you were in the beginning. This really helps that person move on, helps that person be able to feel like, they haven't really lost anything and that you are replaceable. So what you want to do is you want to try to be as cool as possible when you break up with somebody and just be positive. Because the nicer and the cooler you are, the more they feel like they've lost. The more they feel like they've lost out on something that was really good, somebody that was really good. The reality is, even if you do get some level of revenge on them, it's not going to feel good for long, and you're going to feel bad about it in the future. So when you just work on yourself, work on being the best you that you can be, work on moving on with your life and being happy, and get to the point where you wish them all the best, that's going to be the biggest revenge on that person, and not in some corny way, but in a real way, because you're happy now, they see you happy, and I promise you, that's what makes them feel like they've lost something. Not when you're still sitting out here trying to do vindictive stuff, say vindictive stuff to them. That just shows them that you still care about them and you're still paying them attention.